So I decided, you know what, I'm going to go for it. I told my wife, hey, I'm spending $5,000 or $6,000 and we're going to create a one-stop shop for grips where it's, you can buy 6, 7, 10 to 30 different colors in the future. And surprisingly, she didn't push back a lot, which I was like interested. I was like, listen, if it doesn't work out, I'll just sell them all at what I paid for and be done. And so I was like, these will sell, people use them for pickleball, even if, it doesn't turn out. So we got them in. All of a sudden, 2 weeks later, we sold out. And then,
All right, John. What seems to be such a simple product involves so much genius in its execution, which could not be more true. So, for someone listening right now, can you explain to them what you are currently building?
yeah, so for the audience, I am currently building a brand around sports grips, from any ranges of sports, from pickleball, which we're currently in right now, starting with, getting into golf, uh, baseball, lacrosse, hockey. Future is motorcycle grip. So anything that involves some sort of grip and like other accessories or equipment, that's kind of where our brand will be heading in the future.
So, in pickleball, it has now become relatively polluted, especially the grip market. But you guys have really found a way to separate yourselves and stand out. So, what about UDrippin's approach has allowed you to stand out in a polluted crowd?
In the polluted crowd. I think part
Yeah.
of it is, one is the branding, just the name that we went with. There was kind of like a little strategy behind it. I didn't really look into a lot of competitors in the space. Besides, obviously, you had Wilson, right, Yonex, Prince, like these big tennis brands. So I didn't really look into the pickleball side. I knew about one competitor, but I didn't really put it in together of like, hey, I'm going to do this because of them. So it's very strategic with the name we wanted to approach. We wanted to bring something that was very trendy, but that's been trendy since the 80s, 90s, and even till now, even with the younger generation and even still the older generation. So that's kind of how it came about, is how we've been able to kind of stand out is just through the brand name of UDrippin. It's really catchy, it's trendy, but it
Very.
also can go really well with a lot of other brands on collaborations. And I think that's where it's kind of helped us kind of stand out compared to others that may be trying to get into the pickleball world for now.
To just give the audience a little bit of reference, can you tell us some of those collaborations that you've currently had already?
Yeah. So since we've started, we work. We're in a lot of different facilities. Starting to do some more collaborations with them on custom products, but our biggest ones that we've done with are Major League Pickleball teams. So our first one was the Los Angeles Mad Drops. Players like Catherine Parento, Thomas Wilson, Jade Kawamoto, and Hunter Johnson is on that team. And so I became like an exclusive partner for them, where we do collaborations on grips, towels, and hats. And then Drew Brees is one of the owners, so we did a collaboration with Drew, and we're going to do another one this year. And so it started off with them, as well as it's gone on to other partnerships with like with Orlando Squeeze, Texas Ranchers, and then obviously like working closely with pros, for now. Obviously sponsoring. It's not really like a partnership side. It technically is a partnership, but for like the other brands, that's the ones we're mainly working with right now. We just signed a deal in October with the Pickler. So if anybody's familiar with the Pickler, they're one of the largest indoor facility franchise organization, where they bring the highest quality premium courts products into every state that they're going into. And so we became the main grip provider for the Pickler. So we'll be in every facility nationwide and out of the country for the next, for 2 years. So you'll see you dripping everywhere there.
I think that many people now in the pickleball space are familiar with the pickler because
Yeah.
I mean, that's a whole different leg here that I'm super interested in. They've gone on a brand new content creation route by leveraging Anna Bright and Hayden Patrick in this behind the scenes
Yes.
kind of sarcastic office series, which I
Yes.
love. And I'm
Yeah.
sure you've probably seen other brands do something similar. The one that sticks out to me is this small coffee shop in Brooklyn. It may be called Brooklyn Coffee Shop. I don't know if you know of it, but if you don't, go look it up.
Okay.
They have created this entire content series geared around just a content creator being at the register in their coffee shop and having these like funny, so genuine and relatable interactions. And they've, in 26 posts, they've gotten an incredible amount of reach. And I think they gained over like 25,000 followers in that
Oh
period of
wow.
time, just starting with the first one. But the leverage there is why I love this out of the pickler, is that the guests that have been at the counter are like influencers in their own way, in their own niches, in and outside of New York. So every time they make a post, they're reaching that influencer's audience,
Yeah.
which is a massive leverage. So we'll get more later on into your collaboration techniques and really
Okay.
how that's leveraged your brand too. But that just stuck out to me when you brought up the pickler. Been a very loud content series, which I've enjoyed.
Yeah, when I first saw it, I was really impressed with what they were doing. It's very
Yeah.
catchy, right? So it's very memorable. And then their recent one they did of George getting a text saying that the CEO now is Anna Bright, and I thought it was funny, right? Like stuff like that is what people gravitate towards, and that's things they remember is those stories, like that little storytelling of that experience. People remember that over like stats or something like that, right? It's more of that experience, and they can somewhat relate because it's funny. It reminded me of The Office a little bit, and so it's great. So
It's like
they're
the
doing
corniness of it, right? The like
yes,
corniness of
yes,
it. Yeah.
yeah, and they're doing amazing things. So it's cool to be a part of that and like watching what they're doing and just now getting emails every other week on what facilities are opening up and the products going in there and so it's cool to see what's happening so far this month, but what's going to be happening in February, March, and April. It's going to be pretty impressive.
So let's backtrack a little bit.
Okay.
I really want to know, and I'm sure everybody listening wants to know, like, why the hell did you say, let's start a grip company? Like, what made you
Yeah.
want to start UDrippin Grips?
You can ask my wife that because she didn't want to. Um, so my wife and I, we had a business years ago when we were young. Kind of, I wouldn't say stupid young, but we were really into fitness, into the gym. That was like our lives before we had kids, and so we decided, hey, let's start a clothing line. It was more me, and she's like, I don't want to do that. She was raised a little bit different than me, like very conservative. My dad's very entrepreneur minded, and she loved me enough, let me do it. We failed, it wasn't great, like we didn't know exactly how to go about the clothing side of things. And but I just got to learn that industry is kind of like not the environment I wanted to be around, especially like raising kids. I'm like, I don't know, like it's kind of toxic. And so we ended up selling as much product as we can and decided, hey, we have it paid off and everything and made a little bit, let's just move on. And so years later, how we got started with UDrippin is back in 2023, probably in February. I didn't tell my wife this. I was kind of just doing research and like looking on the market. I buy Wilson grips mainly. I like their pink ones, mainly to support with breast cancer due to family and friends I've had that have had it. And so I couldn't find any more 30 packs. They weren't selling them on Wilson's website. They weren't selling Tennis Express, Tennis Warehouse. I had to go on eBay. Well, they started getting less and less on eBay, and the price started going up about $50 for a 30 pack. And so I'm like, this is crazy. I'm playing pickleball all the time. Like I'm looking at different brands. I tried different ones that were pink, and they didn't feel the same. And so I started doing research, Alibaba, where you can get a lot of products from, right, where a majority of people go on to and kind of find relationships. I decided in, February, March, I was like, I'm going to buy tons of samples, test them, have friends test them out, and just kind of go from there. Spend a couple $100s on samples, see how it goes. Lucky enough, I was able to find a manufacturer that from the very get-go is just very responsive, very good with us. We're able to get a really good connection. They work with one of the largest tennis brands in the world, as well as three of the largest Asian brands, and they were able to share me kind of like some of their stories without sharing like personal info, right? So I got some grips in, and they were by far the best I ever tried. Everybody that's tried them, they're like, these are incredible. So I decided, you know what, I'm going to go for it. I told my wife, hey, I'm spending $5,000 or $6,000, and we're going to create a one-stop shop for grips where you can buy 6, 7, 10 to 30 different colors in the future. And surprisingly, she didn't push back a lot, which I was like interested. I was like, listen, if it doesn't work out, I'll just sell them all at what I paid for and be done. And so I was like, these will sell. People use them for pickleball, even if it doesn't turn out. So we got them in. All of a sudden, 2 weeks later, we sold out. And then I got more in a month later. We sold. I went to like a $9,000 order. We sold out in 2.5 weeks. And so that's just kind of how it started going. And it mainly, the brand really became around is because there wasn't a one company providing more options of colors of grips or thicknesses. It was only a few options. So I was able, like, I'm going to create a one-stop shop for everything for grips. And in my mind, the business has always been, I want to get in other sports too in the future. Just start with the niche I know that I love and I play in all the time, and just go from there.
So when you had a business that already failed, what about whether it's the way you grew up or a mentor in your life that really seemed like gave you that mindset to step back in there and learn from that failure and then apply it? Like what about it made you say, when this next opportunity came around, let me try this again, regardless of the previous failure?
Yeah, honestly, I don't know. I've always had that entrepreneur mindset. I work in the tech space. I do sales. I'm a sales leader, and I love the tech space, and I love what I do. But I've always had a passion of, like, and the desire to know that I will be an entrepreneur in some way, shape, or form. That could be real estate, it could be whatever. But I wanted to make sure it was something I was passionate about. But my dad has owned several businesses, from gun safes, to be one of the first gun safe company to paint gun safes like a car, to making that a national brand, to owning a big trailer company for ATV trailers. And so he's always been like an entrepreneur, and he always motivated me and encouraged me to like do more and do better. And so he's always been like my motivating factor behind that, of knowing, like, hey, you got to take risks to be rewarded, but also don't, like, be afraid to fail. And to me, I learned that failure is a part of growth. And if we're fearful of failure, we can't grow. And so I've learned that, hey, I'm going to fail, whether it's in business or in my life with personal life, family, whatever it may be. At some point, I'm going to fail at something. So I just got to, like, learn from that instead of letting it, like, eat me up. I got to take it from what it is, and grow from that. So I've always just had people to support me enough to always help me continue to go. And I think that's what's been the backbone, is like, that support's always encouraged me that I can do it.
So reflecting back on like your journey up into this point,
Yeah.
what was that moment where it really clicked for you? When you really were like, okay, failure is something that I can actually leverage rather than set me back or even cause me to quit?
Yeah, that's a good question. It honestly, I failed at a lot of things in life, and I've always had my dad. Again, my dad, since a teenager, has always told me that mindset. So, like, when we didn't do well in our first business, like, I didn't take that as like a negative. I figured I'm going to learn from this, but it came from a high school age, honestly, with feeling of, like, barely making the high school tennis team and not getting a spot. And I was like, feels terrible. But I worked harder my second year, and I got a better spot, but I didn't get varsity. And so I failed at what I wanted to do. And then going into my junior year, I trained so hard that I made varsity, and then, you know, did well in that, and had a chance to go play college. And so I just learned from a young age that failure, like, I've learned, it's like failing always taught me something. And so I was able to learn from it. So I've always taken it as, like, okay, failure is temporarily, but successes can be long term. So for me, I just felt like that I didn't take everything so personal and let it affect me, because I knew if it did, I would fail. And I've seen other people fail continually because of that, because they let that failure still eat at them. And so I just learned from mistakes from others, and just, advice from other people on just how to block it out and just take that as a good thing and move on.
I So the reason that I resonate with your story so heavily is because there's just something about sport, right, that naturally forces you to fail, whether it's in pickleball or anything else. Like, in order for you to be great, you have to lose a lot,
Oh yeah.
like a lot. And I just sat down with Kyle Yates a little while ago, and he's now the touring pro on the APP tour, and he's coaching a lot of the up and comers in next gen, in the APP tour next gen. And a narrative that he employs is like, you have to learn to lose, and you have to learn to lose a lot. And
Oh
how
yeah,
we referenced it is if you say a draw is 64 teams, right? One team is winning gold. That means there's technically 63 other people losing or other teams losing, right? Multiplying that by, 2, you have 126 people that are losing that day and compared to the 2 that are winning. So the
yep,
odds are very much so stacked against you.
yep,
And you're not going to win gold every single week, week in and week out. Ben Johns did it for a long time, but now he's even losing in men's doubles, right? And
yes,
it's led to him
yeah,
having to make splits with his brother Colin. So I like that you highlighted that because I think it encourages anybody listening, whether it doesn't have to be a physical sport, but something that really challenges you to deal with losing and then come back, learn, and go back again, right?
yeah, oh yeah.
So I want to target this first business that you have a little bit here
Okay,
because I can imagine that there's a whole slew of lessons that came out of it.
oh yeah.
First off, what was so challenging about the like athletic leisure or apparel business in the first place that caused you to pivot?
So like what caused us to stop it? I think a lot of it is the clothing industry move like changes so often, right? The trends, the styles, it can change in a heartbeat. You could be in trend 1 week and then 2 weeks later it's completely different style, and people gravitate so quick because of a marketing campaign of a celebrity or of an athlete, and so just it changes so fast. And so that was like part of it was just like what we thought would help us with brand at first with big bold letters trying to like get the name out there was the right targeted move, and it was in trend a little bit with some of the colors that were popular. We just learned like a few months in the name was catchy. It was called Elite Fitness Company, so but fitness was spelled PHITNESS, right? So it's different spelling. So EPC, people actually really liked that name. They thought it was very unique and different, but our branding was just wasn't great at the beginning. um, we didn't do as much research into it. We just kind of went what we're seeing in the fitness industry of what was working without a lot of experience. We tried that, and it didn't work. And the biggest thing is we didn't put our like touch to it, if that makes sense. We kind of went with what we are thinking was right instead of what we felt would be best that we would like that could gravitate towards others, and that's kind of where it didn't really work out super well at first.
So let's dive into the piece of branding there.
Okay.
What did you learn were some critical components about branding that you have taken into UDrippin now?
Not everybody's gonna like what you like. That was like the biggest takeaway I got from that is I may like the big, bold block, not blocky, but just more bold, broader logoing, where a lot of audience doesn't like that. And so part of it was we didn't know how to do websites. We didn't know how to really build out. It was kind of like let's just go with it, the flow, and figure it out from there. And I didn't do as much research as I should have on that space. Right, I was a young kid. I was 23, 24, right, young, just wanting to do it. And again, I wasn't scared of failing, so I figured, hey, if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But I didn't necessarily like do the research enough to launch it properly or the right way to help it. So yeah.
Have you like established a now working through you dripping and finding success in the space, have you identified a few like key components of branding that you're like, okay, here's something that we have to stick to moving forward, and here's another thing that we have to stick to because previously we learned from this. Like, is there those pillars now that you kind of stick to when it comes to the you dripping brand?
Yeah, so the goal behind the name was it could be very modern, but it also can be very retro. And so I figured, okay, right now in the world, when we started this, even still almost 2 years later, it's still the same as okay, there's those people that are all about the most vibrant colors, like the soft greens, pastel colors, black and gray. But then there's also people that are these younger generations in my age in the 30s, mid 30s, are like still in love with the 90s. They talk about it still. And so that was the biggest thing, was like, okay, I want to have a name that gravitates towards everybody instead of one specific genre or person or persona that I think it would. And so I was more strategic about, okay, can this name work with retro stuff in the 80s and 90s, and can it work with very modern stuff as well with the type of logo and design we went with? And that's how I felt like we were able to kind of learn from the last mistake on it and really broaden that horizon instead of just kind of pigeonholing ourselves into one potential target audience. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the second component of this, so we really just kind of highlighted like branding a little bit, what you
Yeah.
learned. The second component of this that I'm sure you learned was like, how the hell do you even contact or go about finding manufacturers for your product, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I'm sure that you had the athleisure idea and you're like, okay, like we have this idea. Who the hell do we contact now?
Yeah.
So, how have you also learned from that experience to now, when you started UDrippin, kind of like know the formula of here's what I have to do to find a manufacturer and even learn about, what involves grips?
Yeah. So a lot of it was just when I first early on, I wasn't educated a lot. I was young. I was uh, I worked at the gym. I thought that would help. I went into call center job for a little while and then doing summer sales. So I was kind of bouncing around. So I didn't really know much about the manufacturer side, as we just got the name figured out, and then we had a company here locally that printed shirts and stuff that my dad knew the kind of people over there, right? And so we were able to get a little bit of a deal. We had someone help with the design of the logo and just kind of went for it. Where now it was like, okay, um, ever since then I got into the tech space. I became a sales development representative, so it's all prospecting. It's all doing research. It's all understanding businesses, personas, like how to reach out to certain people. And so I took my skill sets of what I did really well at as a setter to a closer to a leader, and said, okay, what resources do I have at my fingertips with online? And okay, we have Alibaba. Like, that's a well-known place to go and find starting products and finding manufacturers. So what I did there is I said, okay, I'm going to type in tennis grips and figure out, okay, how many manufacturers are there? I started doing research on YouTube. I found out that, okay, you want to make sure that they're verified. And if they're verified on Alibaba and they've been verified for more than 5 years, they're a good brand. They're a good business to work with for the most part. So I went with the few ones that weren't really verified to compare, and then just figuring out, okay, I'll sample these. I started understanding, like, okay, what type of material do you use? Can we go with the same polyurethane material, but can we make it thinner and stretchier? And just working with those manufacturers with more of the verified side. Um, I learned that they can communicate better. They are more professional. They're willing to work through a little bit more, and they're willing to share a little bit more about other stuff that they're doing, right? Other businesses, without sharing who they are. And so that's kind of how I just took my research from a previous job of how to do that, and then just getting samples in and figuring out, okay, which one's thicker, which one's thinner, which one's tackier, which one's more stretchy, which one's not. And that's kind of how we're able to get it going. And a lot of it came down to me was just the communication part, is who was communicating with me the most and who I felt more comfortable with when time to response. And the one that we were able to work with that came into play, uh, that's what like stood out to me the most. And we just went from there. And they were super generous on the minimums for me to allow me to do multiple colors. As I said, hey, if it doesn't work out, we get feedback that, hey, the grip's okay, it doesn't last longer, hey, we need to do better material, then I'll find another manufacturer. But luckily, we've been able to work with, I think one of the best ones out there.
So, let's start at like day one of this R&D process.
Yep.
So, to kind of like set the scene here, or
Okay.
set the picture, let's say you could correct me too. If it's
Yep.
5 or 10 manufacturers that you all reached out to, you reached out
Yep.
to all of them.
Yep.
And did you have them send you samples first?
Yes.
Each one send you
So
samples.
yeah. So I whatever the sample cost was is mainly just shipping. But
Yeah.
I said, hey, I want your thinnest to thickest over grip, and then your like give me the most like one that's thicker for more comfort, and then one of your most tackiest grips. And that's how I kind of left it. And they'd always kind of push you like, well, let's place an order too, a little bit bigger. Or once you get it, it's like, hey, I'm doing my research. I'm going between multiple manufacturers, and I'll let you know if I'm going to move forward to do more
Yeah.
samples or a custom designed grip with a design on it, and kind of go from there and spend a few hundred on that. And so that's kind of how I did it. I found, I think I got 23 or 24 different manufacturers and went from there. So,
So now let's get to like stage two.
yep.
Stage two being like, okay, now you have some samples. How do you get that validation from your crowd or your key audience to really say, okay, we like these grips, or you even find what grips to choose for to then actually go and execute on a large volume order? Did
Yeah.
you just do friends and family first? Like, who did you go to then kind of like test sample all of these grips?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I run a Tuesday night group every Tuesday here in Utah at Club Pickleball USA in Orem. We get 4.5 to 5.0 levels, and we do money ball every week. And so I got to build a lot of relationships that way. And so when I got them, I just grabbed some of the friends that I play with that use overgrips, say, hey, will you sample one of these for me and give me your feedback compared to what you use with Wilson or Yonex, right? Those are the main ones that are used. So I had them compare apples to apples. We would play a game with one of the grips, and then we would grab their normal paddle and then feel the difference in tackiness, feel did it slip faster, whatever. And so I took a lot of their feedback because they play all the time like I do. And so I'd play with it too, and we all would agree, like, yeah, this one got slippery really fast. It felt like gushy. Let's throw that one out. So I wrote down, I had the name written down. Okay, I'm crossing that one off. Let's move the next one. Let's move the next one. And we did that for multiple weeks, like trying to play with different ones until we found the one that just worked out. Like when we got it, it was thinner. I was like, I grabbed it, like, this is freaking stretchy. Like, this is cool. But when I put it on, it was really tacky. And then I don't sweat as much on my hands, but my friend does. And he's like, dude, what grip is this? Because when I got sweaty, it got tackier and it felt better in hand. And so he's like, it's weird. I don't know. I'm like, maybe it's a one-off. And so I grabbed another one out and I grabbed a colorful one they sent me. Same thing. Obviously, color's not as tacky as pure white, but it still was really tacky, and it felt the same way. Like, it when it got wet, it felt better in hand, didn't feel like it slid, felt more confident. And so we went through all of them still, and that was the number one based upon a few feedback, and then my experience playing with, Wilson, Babolat from tennis, and then Yonex, and I still compared them. I was like, these are better than all three of those. We asked for more tack on them, and that's what they're able to do with us. More expensive material, um, and that's just how we came on. Is did like an R&D for a few weeks of, on Tuesday nights and other days I'd play, and ultimately came out of top three and found a good one for custom grips and then one for our main tacky grips, and it worked out.
So now that you established like a small sample size to
Yes,
like
yeah.
validate the product, did you then go and test a larger sample, or like what was your next pool of candidates that you went and tested, just validate the reviews that you got from your Tuesday night league?
Yeah, so I had a bunch left over. So I bought a batch worth. I created an Instagram account, right? And I kind of bought a small batch. They gave me a good deal on the one that I liked, that I was validating. And then Thomas Wilson reached out, and I sent one to Thomas, and Thomas was like, dude, I used Wilson my whole life, and this is way better than Wilson. And so it we did a few posts, right? Just trying to build hype on this small little batch. And then finally it's like, okay, I'm just gonna put in uh, $6,000, whatever it was, and kind of went from there. I just felt confident with it based upon my friends and just my gut feeling, honestly. I was like, this feels way better than every one of them. If I like this, and I'm super picky about grips, I think 90% of the population that plays pickleball will love it because they may not fully know grips, right? But that's why we did two models: is a comfort thicker, and then thin is because we want people that want more cushion, and one that want to be able to fill the paddle handle a little more. So I figured, hey, I'm not going to start with one. I'm going to start with two because I want to get both markets of people. I don't want to limit myself and do it later. I capitalize on it now, and so that's what I did, and my gut reaction, and it worked out.
So we kind of sped over this, but you
Yeah.
told us that Thomas Wilson reached out to you.
Yep.
How did Thomas Wilson get his grip in, or your grip in his hands?
So I played Thomas in a tournament before in Vegas, and so I got to know him a little bit after that, just talking with him. My buddy um, Dave Hall and I that I play with, we played him and AJ Kohler. And so after I saw them and played against them, AJ gave me some really good advice. Said, hey, dude, like, your game is getting really close. You got to work on these shots. And then Thomas, same way. Like, Thomas is just super genuine. I didn't really talk to him a lot after that. I would comment on his things. I'm like, dude, you're killing it. Way to go. And like, just being a fan, because I've always been a fan of him, just because of the person who he is. And then he just reached out, and I was like, yeah, dude, like, hey, I can't do a lot. Like, I can't pay. I'm a startup. And he goes, no, I know. I want to help you grow if I like it. And so I gave it to him. 2 weeks later, I was like waiting, and he messaged me back, goes, let's talk. And we had a call, and he's like, dude, I don't want a lot from you. I want to help your grand bro and make this thing big. And I'd love to be a part of that journey. And that shows the type of character Thomas is. And so he understood from day one. And we consider him a pivotal piece of our company ever since then, because he was a big factor of helping us get into the pickleball scene.
So let's continue to elaborate on this, because this is
Okay.
exactly where I was hoping to lead,
Okay.
right?
Let's do it.
So you've done a lot of like collaborative branding, and it's really has gotten the UDrippin name out there, even beyond just grips, like hat collabs that are now coming out that I saw with both, like you said, the LA Mad Drops and the Texas
Yeah.
Ranchers, I believe I saw too.
Yeah.
How did you penetrate those markets? Like, how did you end up getting yourself to a point to get them to say yes to a collab on something like that?
Yeah. So this all goes back to me being a sales rep. Like my dad taught me at a very young age. We went to a little short story on it, and it gets right into is when I was a kid, I wanted a duck call. I loved duck hunting. I never duck hunted, which is weird. I just love duck calls. So my dad we were at a gun show, and he was selling guns that he collects. And I was like, Dad, I really want this duck call. He's like, how much is it? I think it was like $60 or $70. And I was like 12 years old, 11 or 12. And he goes, $60. Go to them and see if you can trade something. And I'm like shaking in my boots. And so I go there, he rejects me. I come back to my dad frustrated. He's like, go again and ask for something else. Tell him I have this. Go there. He goes, no, I don't want to do any trades. And I go back just crying. And he goes, one more time, go back. So he follows me over, and the guy was super impressed that he's like, hey, I don't want to trade, but I'll give you a really good deal on it. And so that's how I kind of learned how to communicate with people and never got scared to talk to people. And my parents told me when we moved to our new neighborhood, the one I grew up in till I met my wife, I was 6 years old. My parents say, you go up to adults and talk to adults, and you didn't care. You're never scared of them. You'd have conversations with these adults. And so my dad taught me at a young age to communicate, and communication is what breeds trust. That breeds partnerships, relationships. And so I learned that from him. And then going into the tech space, into sales, we really learned how to speak to different type of personas, from like marketing managers to directors to VPs to where I'm at now with rewards and recognition at a company called Awardco, working with HR professionals and sharing how we can help them in their roles with recognition. And so that's what's really helped me. And I'm like, if one thing I'm good at is I'm good at communicating, and I'm not afraid to have conversations. And if it doesn't work out, it's a no right now, but it's going to be yes in the future. That's how I always see it. So how it started out is the LA Mad Drops, before they drafted Thomas Wilson and Catherine for the season last year, Thomas and Zubin, that owns the Mad Drops, was talking. He goes, hey, we're looking for some sponsorships and partnerships. Do you have anything in mind? And so lo and behold, he's like, well, I'm sponsored by a grip company. They do custom design grips. They're a startup. They don't have a lot. And all of a sudden I get a message from Mad Drops like, hey, let's have a conversation. And lo and behold, it was the owner on the call. I had no idea. And I met with him and his wife and their marketing girl, Andrea, they're amazing. And they joked with me. It's like, okay, our partnerships are 100,000 a year. And I'm like, that ain't happening. And then all of a sudden they joked and laughed like, no, we don't want any money. We want you to be the official grip partner. We'll do collabs. We'll even buy grips from you to sell, to make you money. But let's do something big, and let's help grow your brand. Like, let me help grow your brand into something else, something bigger. And I couldn't take it myself. It's the relationships I built is what's built the brand. And so, even though I gave them grips for free, I was like, I don't need to pay for them. Like, I want to be a part of this, like earn my way. We worked with them, and then I just knew I could communicate. So the Ranchers, I saw them at MLP, Orlando reached out in a message saying, hey, we want to look at being a partner. And I'm like, well, I'm in an exclusive deal. I called Zubin, the owner. He's like, nope, I love the owner of Orlando. Do a collab with them. Just say you can't give out free product to them. They have to buy it. And so that's how we did it. And then met the Ranchers at MLP Utah. Got connected with one of my content creators named Brian Lim. He introduced us through text saying, hey, pick Ranchers, like lady that's over the players is in Utah, wants to get some games in if you're available. And then I met her there and showed her what we're doing with LA Mad Drops, and we got on a call, and then we've been able to collaborate. And so long story short, it's just learning to communicate with people and not being scared to try to reach out. If they say no, I don't care. I'll figure it out. But I don't take any of the credit. I say partnerships and relationships is what helps people grow, companies. And so Zubin and the Mad Drops have been a big pivotal piece of that. That's helped my brand get out there to where now we're eventually potentially going to be working with almost every MLP team in Premier this year. Like we're working on some stuff.
That's
So
awesome.
yeah, so that's kind
We
of how
might
it
have
got started.
we might have to dive more into that if you could speak
Yeah,
on it.
yeah.
Do you feel like your role in tech sales as well has played a huge piece in just like doubling down on that communication skill?
Yes, absolutely, 100%. Like, you get thrown in the fire in tech sales when it's cold calling people, and it taught me that to how to have conversations on the phone and learn how to like match their tone of voice, and like really care and understand what their role is. And it's helped me have easier conversations instead of trying to like pitch a product, right? So yes, that helped it. But I'll tell you this, like that was like right there. I think the biggest thing's my wife is she decided in January of last year that I couldn't do this alone. I proven the model. And
Mm,
she's like, I need to take less hours of work and help you grow it. And ever since then, she's been our she's our CFO, operations, COO. Like, she's like, you worry about partnerships, you worry about product, you worry about the sponsors, and I'll worry about this. And if it wasn't for her, like, I don't think I would even be close to what I am now with the success we're having. Like I wouldn't be able to juggle it, especially
mm.
with us working jobs. So like that has to go to her because now it's not my business, it's our business because she finally is like, let's do it. Like I'm in it. So now I started it, but we own it, if that makes sense. So
Absolutely.
yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. We're gonna we're gonna get back to that as well. But I
Okay.
wanted to let's you kind of started to touch on it with this with the tech sales and what you've
Okay.
learned from it. You
Okay.
started to talk about like something like matching their tone of voice, and this is kind of
Yep.
where I was going with this. For anybody listening that is trying to work on their communication skills when it comes to business, really leveraging their network or even expanding it, is there a few secrets that you can share about how you can influence that conversation possibly more in your direction than theirs?
Yes, I would say the biggest thing is um, actively listen. Listen to what they're saying and not waiting to get the next word in. And I still have problems with that today with an experience I had on a call that I thought may not be going anywhere. It may now still, it probably will, but I thought I botched it because I spoke too much instead of trying to go back to my roots. I was just too excited. So I'd say actively listen and be curious. Like that's what I tell my sales reps now is be curious. Like really try to understand what they do and how they function, how they work. And that way, once you can understand that, it allows you to create value around how your solution or your product, whatever it may be, can actually help them. If you go in blinded and say this product does this, but it doesn't really help them in their role, it's not, or as an owner or company, it's not going to help them. And so if you can understand, um, what they really care about, and you can tie in that our product can really help them and share some sort of story around it, that goes a lot longer way than a feature or a function. And that's what I've learned. And that's the advice I'd give to people is be curious and actively listen to what they say and pause and wait to respond and let your thoughts gather instead of rushing into, oh, we help with this. We can do that, what you're dealing with. It's more of continue to like ask more questions to dig deeper and understand the root of the cause or the problem or the solution to help them.
So let's put you on the other side of this.
Okay.
Okay. Now being in the seat that you're in. So if we were to walk through a real world example and you were to talk us through, let's say it's an influencer who's up
Okay.
and coming, trying to penetrate let's say it's pickleball influencer space, and you're on their radar and they're looking to reach out to you for possible collaboration to show you what they can do and how they can leverage your brand.
Yep.
Being now in the owner seat,
Yep.
what would you be looking for in that reach out that would make you consider doing a collaboration or partnership with this
Yep.
influencer that has reached out to you?
Okay. First off, is there like like they're reaching out to me? I would say the biggest thing is there have they done the research? do they know exactly what we do? Right? I get reached out to all the time from influencers. It's the same generic thing. Surprisingly, they copy and paste stuff and they put pickleball paddles in there instead of grips. So understand the audience, bring something that I'm doing that catches my attention, right? Instead of saying, "Hey, I noticed you're a grip or a grip business, love to do some collaborations because your name." I'd rather see, "Hey, UDrippin, I noticed that you did this collaboration with Madra or with Orlando Squeeze. And you did these really cool Orlando Squeeze logos on them. I really think this can gravitate towards my audience because of XYZ." So being able to come to it with doing their research on our business, sharing something that they've seen that we've done, and create something that can bring value to me based upon what they're doing in the audience, instead of saying, "Hey, I could increase your sales by 70%." That's kind of a radar for me. Like, okay, but like how? Like, give me an example, right? Instead of just a very generic. So when I get people reach out to me, I don't know if my wife loves this, but I'm not blunt, but I'm coaching. I say, "Hey, thank you for your reach out, but unfortunately this time I'm gonna have to pass because I would love to see an approach of, hey, I can help your business do this, or I'd love to be a part of it because I saw this, or something that can benefit me or that can relate to what I'm doing, that that is already currently done instead of something very generic." And I no joke, probably 90% of the people respond back, "Thank you so much for that info. That really actually helps me. Hopefully one day I can come back and prove you right on that." And to me, I get feedback that all the time from prospects when I cold called or my leaders. And so I want to help them. I want them to realize, like, hey, you go on this generic approach, whether it's TikTok shop, trying to help sell products or get free products, like learn to like articulate a conversation and do your research. And I just want to help them. Hopefully one day they look back at it like, "Oh, that guy, John or UDrippin, taught me something. I'm glad they did that." Right? Because a lot of people are too short and like, "No, not interested." But I'm like, "Hey, I'm not interested because of this. I would have like maybe next time do this approach." I'm just trying to be coachable and not, hopefully it doesn't come off harsh, but hopefully they know it's like, "Hey, now's not a good time, but the reason I'm not is because of this, and maybe you could try it this way." And hopefully it's a learning experience for them that they can take to someone else or to me later down the road.
I think that it says a lot to even the, let's say it is the influencer, whoever reaches out to you, to want to possibly work with you in the future, knowing that you're going to receive genuine feedback. Um, Even like someone like sitting in my position too, and this is where I'm going to ask this next question, is like you view these relationships on the possible leverageability beyond just this transaction, right? Just beyond like, hey, I'm going to pay you to show our grips or put our grips in your channel. It's like, what's the leverage beyond that? Is this relationship going to continuously flourish and we're possibly going to build together? Or are you going to connect me to another network where like now I'm collaborating with a bunch of others? Um, I completely agree with you on that approach. Um, the kind of like the other side of this that I was going to get at is, for you and your lens, what makes it worth it to you to want to collaborate with a potential influencer?
I think a lot of it comes down to their personality, who they are. Like I look at their social media. Um, I look at things they do on their stories, how they interact with people, the type of audience that they uh, that they attract. Um, where I look at it too is the only proof I have is what's on social media. I don't know them. So I look at, for example, Ed Ju. Do you know Ed Ju?
I
Ed
do
Ju
know Ed
Pickle.
Ju.
So he's
Not personally, but I do know him. Yeah.
one of the nicest people you ever meet, man. He lights up the room, and when you watch his content, it makes you feel like he's in the room with you talking to you.
I completely agree.
And he's our main content creator. He's driving revenue for us. And so for me, it's like, okay, I see him responding to comments that people leave. That's the type of people I want to work with. It's not ones that are just looking at getting tons of followers and tons of views and clicks to make money, but they're interacting with their audience and they're being professional about it too. And um, and that's what I really looked for when I look for people. That's why I don't have a lot of content creators right now, is because I want to make sure it aligns with my brand. Brian Lim, Building Pickleball, love that dude to death. Like, he is just one of the most kindest people ever, and he just wanted to help me grow. And when we started, he was still younger in his journey, but the way he communicated with his audience, that what he was doing and the vibe, it aligned with my brand. And when chatting with him, I was like, okay, like even if I give him crap ton of free product and I don't get any sales in return or anything, I'm okay with that because I'm associating my brand with such a good person. And so that's what I look for. I look for how they communicate with their audience rather than looking for, clicks and likes and things like that. So
Brian and I had a really good time on our episode,
I
and
saw that. That's good. I watched half of it
yeah,
so far.
and to speak to Brian quickly, like he's totally a person that's, especially on like the content creation side, that is ahead of me on his journey. And he is like, whatever you need, like reach out to me if you got questions about this, or this, or how to go about this. Like, feel free to ask me questions. Like, just offered me his time.
Yeah.
So, for a guy in his position that has really worked so deeply on his craft, I respect him still offering his time
Yeah.
like that. So,
His
really,
his
really good dude.
his approach is actually kind of different than everybody else.
Yeah.
If you look at
Yep.
it, right? It's very unique. But it's I think it's taken a minute to start getting the views and everything on his stuff, but now it's starting to get there. And I loved it from the very beginning. Cause I'm like, dude, you're standing out, you're doing something different. Like it's not the generic paddle review or whatever. Like your content is raw, it's authentic and real. It's not comparable to anybody else, but the approach of sitting at his table and the way he talks, his voice is just very gravitating, right? And so I always try to encourage him when I send him a text or a message, like, dude, I love this. Like, keep doing what you're doing. Like, you're gonna be going places. Don't forget about us little people. And that's the same thing about Ed. Like, Ed's the same exact way. As he has a higher pitched voice, but he is so authentic and like he really brings the energy to everything with his higher pitched voice and his style and the way he tells a story when doing it. And that's what I love. There's amazing reviewers out there. Pickleball Effect. I got to know Braden a little bit, even though he has his own grip business. But I love his content, and I always tell him like, dude, you're getting way better every month or two. It's like I want him to succeed. I want him to be successful, and I've really learned to like his because he found his niche. And so it's those type of people that I want to gravitate around, right? Because they bring a unique touch, but yet people respect them.
The emphasizing point that you had there was like creating content that is really you, but is original, right?
Yes.
Not copy paste. And actually, Brian Lim is the one who challenged me to start doing that and like venturing more into, because we talked about it. He said so many nice things, but he was like really on the content creation side. Like, I kind of challenge you to create something that is yours and not and aligned with like your brand
Yes.
and not everybody else's, right? Kind of is a consistent creative lens that you enjoy, that when people just by looking at it know that it's you, right?
Yes. 100%.
So that is something that I am personally working on. I think when you start any brand, it's like, how can you get everything out as fast as possible, right?
Yeah.
And then you take a kind of a back seat of like, okay, now that we have become more efficient, let's bump up the quality. Then
Yeah.
quality goes up, efficiency gets sacrificed a little bit. Then you flop it again, and it's like, okay, now that we've gotten the quality up, let's get more efficient with that quality. It's kind of this iteration of like bumping up the quality, bumping up the efficiency, bumping up the
Yeah.
quality, back and forth. So for me, I'm currently on that journey of really trying to find like what our stylistic narrative is and how we can do the best to employ really leveraging failure as a whole. But Brian did challenge me to do that, which I appreciate.
Oh yeah. No, he's amazing.
So if we were to summarize, and I was writing this down, if you probably saw me as you're talking
Yeah.
about it, I'm really trying to summarize this process, this
Yeah.
sequential process that you've gone through in order to get here. First, it's create a great product. And the reason that I say this, because, and maybe you can comment on this, do you believe that you would have been able to have these collaborations if you didn't have a great product in the first place? Like, if your grips were average, do you think you would have had the same leverage when it came to these collabs?
Uh, no, not to this extent. I think yes to a little bit of it. Probably
Okay.
part of the name because the name goes with a lot of things. But I would say majority of it is just the quality of products. Um, you know, people like something I've learned is people don't buy a product based upon like the features, you could say, right? They buy because of the person that they're working with or the company, right? What they do, they feel
Absolutely.
something? Does it resonate? Does it remind them of something? And so I feel like that's what I've really done. I made it from day one. My voice is higher pitched. I think especially having kids, I talk higher pitched voice to sound excited with them. And being in sales, talking with a lot of females, I've had to like learn to talk higher pitched. And so for me, I the one strength I have is I honestly never hated anybody in my life. I've loved everybody. I try to look for the good in everybody because I was bullied as a kid. I was made fun of. I was at a challenging teenage years because of it. So I want to treat people the way I want to be treated. And so I knew from day one when starting this, I was like, I want to give everybody the best experience possible. I sound terrible, but I'm gonna do live videos on stories. I'm gonna showcase my product more and get the face of the brand out there because that's what's going to make a difference, I felt like. And after a year of doing it, we get messages of like saying, hey, I love that you're showing your face. You may not love it, but thank you for doing that because it shows us who the brand really is and who's behind the brand. And I made myself committed. As long as I'm owning this business, what I'm doing, every month I got to get involved in front of that. If I'm traveling, I got to be able to showcase my face because I want them to feel something or see something. And that way they want to come back for more and they can feel like they're a part of something instead of just buying a product, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Would you say the summary is they come for the product and stay for the community?
I would, yeah, that's perfect. I should use that as a one liner. That is awesome.
You like,
That's
yeah.
a good one. That's
Thank
it,
you.
it.
Thank you.
It's true, man. Like
Yeah.
you can buy if you have like for example, in there's Bodie Grips is another competitor. I know the owner. His name Bodie. I talked to him plenty of times. He messaged me. He goes, "Hey, I love what you're doing." He congratulated me on the Pickler deal and the Pickleball Central deal, and we became friends just like through social media, talking and encouraging stuff. Like I want him to be successful, but like like his products are good. Like his grips are actually really good. I bought them to test, right? But like every product there's a lot of similarity, and so if you have two products of very similarity, what is someone going to go back to? It's the connection they had with one that product but to that business. And so we luckily have a guy that's our marketing guy that works with some really big brands that understands that side of it, and that's what made them successful. And so we're lucky enough to have a coach behind us with that to make sure we're doing it the right way to keep getting people to come back, because not just because of the product, but because of what they're experiencing and how they're gravitating towards, the brand in general instead of just the grip.
So would you say it goes create a product, test your product, really like adapt your product or tailor to a great product, and then from there collaborate? Is that really how you would sequentially organize it?
Yeah, yeah, in that way. I think it's first and foremost is creating the product, finding the right product that you think everybody's going to love, because you can't test it to 1,000 people, right?
Yeah.
Or to get the general audience. But then I think the next part is, okay, what's your logo going to look like? What's your branding? That's
Mm.
what the next things are going to be attached to, right? Like, uh, I wanted something very simple and clean. I didn't want something sporadic, very colorful, because I wanted to be able to hit a wide audience. So I'd say, like product, figuring out that brand image, and then yes, the last part. Sorry, with
Collaborate.
collaborate.
So I'm going to ask you something here because you brought it up here.
Okay.
Um, what about, so you talked about growing up a little bit.
Yeah.
What about your experience with bowling do you feel has molded you into the way that you operate today?
Um, yeah. I look back on it. So it's like a sensitive subject, but a great subject. I love it.
Yeah.
Just because it brings back experiences, but it's what helped me. Yeah, growing up, like I'm not tall, I'm 5'5", 5'6" on a good day. Maybe with like Jordan 3s on or Air Max 1s, I'm taller, right? um,
Yeah.
but I was always shorter, and I was never tall. I was always a little bit stockier. But I felt like I was a pretty good athlete. I could play every sport. Like I played football, tennis, basketball, but I was never like the best, right? I was good enough to play it with them, but not really the best. But I was always just bullied for my size and things like that. And so I just learned, like it hit me hard. Like it got me really depression as a kid. as a teenager. And I think what helped me out, kind of get out of that and learn from it is I left to serve a church mission for 2 years, and it taught me how to live on my own. But like I had severe like depression at that time too, and I had an experience. Don't want to get into it, but had an experience where when I came home, like I made a commitment to myself that I would make sure I treat other people the way I'd want to be treated and not the way I was treated. And so that experience that I've had throughout growing up and on my mission helped me mold me. And I just learned pretty quick after my dad talked to me when I got home was like, you can't let people affect your life. Like you can only make what's best for your life and your family or your spouse in the future. And so what being as a kid and being bullied, it hurt in the moment, but I'm thankful for that because it taught me how to treat others differently, uh, especially if I ever get to a point where I become noticeable or whatever it may be. I want to make sure I treat everybody the same way because everybody's going through something. And so why do I want to ruin someone else's life, right? Whether or not I agree with the political or something they say, whatever it may be. So I'm going to treat them the same way I would treat my my brothers, my wife, my family. So
How has that experience, because now you're leading a company, right?
yep.
So how does that experience really like adapted your leadership style? Like the way that you go about conversations with, if it is now your wife being an employee or even
Yep.
future employees. Like I'm sure that you've taken notes to say, when we
Yep.
hire the next 2, 3, 4 people, here's the type of team that we want to create.
Yeah. Um, for me, like just thinking about that and thinking about my current job, right? As a sales leader, I work with really young reps. And so just the way I approach it is really getting to understand them and what motivates them and use that motivational piece to help coach and develop them. Some prefer encouragement of like shout outs and some prefer it behind closed doors through a message, right? And so I've learned to like read people, understand what works well and what doesn't. And so like as looking for my business, it's like okay, when I'm interviewing people, I don't want people just like me because that's not going to work, right? I've never been strong-willed. Like my wife's more stubborn on certain stuff than I am, but she's very smart, like beyond smarter than me. I'm the rock in the family. You could say I hold the foundation. When it comes to smart side, that's her. And so it's like finding people that can bring traits of grit and eager to learn. That's what I would look for as adding employees is someone that's eager to learn, um, that's coachable, and someone that we know that has grit. That just like kind of understand like what have they gone through. Will this help them and motivate them? And my ultimate goal is when I have employees one day, that's the goal is how can I mold them into a better person so they can help someone else out in the future.
How would you employ your employees
Yep.
to really embrace failure and learn? Because I think the main pillar there is not only fail but learn from it. I think it's a little bit different narrative if you're just failing, but
Yep.
how would you enforce them to really embrace that failure culture?
Um, if something happened where they failed, your instinct is I'm going to help solve this. I'm a very green and yellow personality when it comes to personality traits. I'm very sunshine and loving, so I instantly want to help and I want to challenge them. So if something happens, let's say they mess up on a wholesale account with a big client, let's say for example, I'm not just gonna like try to take it over and fix it. Like maybe I might, I don't know, but like my ultimate goal is like I want them to break it down and say, okay, how do we get to this conclusion and what can we do to solve this and how can you solve it and come back to a solution with me? Like yes, you failed, but failure is not permanent. Like we can get them back or we learn from the experience, but I want them and challenge them to look at it at a deeper level and come up with a potential solution or a way to fix it or try to solve it, even if it doesn't work. Like try to like embed in them. It's like, hey, yeah, I failed, but look at it as a learning experience. How can I dig in deeper into that? How did that happen? How did it fail? But how can I try to change that? Even though if they possibly can't, just trying to teach them to not just quit, right? Like, because quitting doesn't help anybody. But if they can try to learn from something from it, even if they can learn one unique little thing, that's going to help them the next time they fail and do even better, right? And overcome it. So hopefully that answered your question.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And it
Yeah.
leads me into question about some failures that you may have had with UDrippin. Did
Okay.
you have a moment with UDrippin grips when you were like, "Holy shit, this may be the end of us"?
Uh, uh, not the end,
Yeah.
but every dollar counts. I don't think people realize that. We get reached out to from pros all the time, and 4Os and a lot of 5O players asking for money or asking for free product. And my biggest thing I hate as a business owner is telling people no. I hate it. I would love to give everybody free product. When it comes down to the dollar amount, like every dollar spent, that's where it nerve wracks me and it gets my mind kind of stern. And so like me jumping to a conclusion, I thought, oh hey, this MLP deal with Mad Drops is going to be massive. Like that sport's big. In reality, it's decent, but it's not where it can be. So I overloaded on product, and I'm like, I spent way more thousands and thousands of dollars than I should have, and it sat, and I that was a failure because I'm like, oh, I went too much with my heart, and instead of like, hey, let's be smart and let's do a small batch and go from there. Because I thought, hey, they're going to do a lot of booths, so they're going to have a lot of products to sell, which found out they don't do a lot of booths. This year they will, but last year they didn't. So we held on to a lot of product, which if hold on product, we're not making money. So I never had an experience where like crap, the business is like about to close down or whatever. Um, Actually, there is one. Mind if I share it? It's really quick.
Yeah.
Okay. So I started this business. I was really new into it. We called the grip side Drip Grips by UDrippin. Okay. So it's really catchy,
Mm,
right? Like, hey, these are Drip
yeah.
Grips by UDrippin. Well, I'm creating this social media channel on this, and we're churning. We've gone through our first two batches. I get an email or a message on Instagram saying, hey, you don't own the rights to Drip Grips. I do. And I'm like, what? And I looked it up, and their business was called, I don't want to say it, but it's like pretty much almost the same.
Yeah.
And they do baseball grips. And I was like, I'm freaking out. I'm like, crap, this is no good. Like, what's going to happen? I got my attorney involved, my dad's buddy that did our trademark in the process of it. And I was like, hey, I got this reached out to. He's like, have him send me the trademark. And he goes, we got it. He's like, technically, he filed for the state, but he didn't file nationwide from what I can see. So technically, we could go in and file it and then we could win it, but you won't be able to sell product in California. So I was like, oh, that sucks. California's a big market for sports. So I was like, what do I do? And I'm freaking out to my wife. And she's like, our name's UDrippin though, but it's Drip Grits by UDrippin. And so I'm glad I did that because it allowed me to quickly pivot. And I was worried about our audience saying, like, changing the name. And we had people ask why we did. And once I explained it on a post or read it all out, I spent a lot of time writing it out. I should have used ChatGPT or something. I didn't, and, and I did it, and we got a lot of warm feedback, and it was amazing. We built a good community, but that was a scary moment for me because I thought I was going to get sued. You know what I mean? That was
Yeah.
a big, yeah. Like, so yes, that was like, I'm like, is this going to ruin it? Not like necessarily ruin it, but I'm like, this is a way big step back. But in reality, I let the negative outweigh the positive by a ton, right? Like negativity always outweighs the positive. I've learned that,
Mm,
but I let it and for like 3 days, and then finally I had to change labels. I had a batch that was already shipped. I was just like, I spent thousands of dollars on this, so yeah, it took a little bit more money, but yeah, that was kind of a scary moment, but it was a good learning experience, right? Because like I looked up stuff, but I looked up for like national. I didn't look up. I didn't know to look up per state for trademarks. So that was a lesson learned. So the audience out there looking for trademarks, make sure to see if you can find other states. Like I didn't do that. You could only see what's been trademarked for the whole nation, and they apparently either didn't file it or it was in the process. But from what we found, they couldn't find anything. So
note taken for myself as well.
yeah, yeah,
Um, okay, so move kind of like finishing up here.
yep,
What is the future for UDrippin grips? Like what's on the radar? What does 2025 look like and beyond?
yeah. That's a good question.
Yeah.
Um, so when it initially started, people always ask, "Are you just pickleball grips?" I'm like, no, we're trying to be sports grips. As the brand's evolving and the more our name, the more we hear from people that own businesses, from And even I have a buddy that I learned from the gym that owns it. He works at investing firm, one of the largest ones that works with like Coca-Cola and big brands. And he goes, dude, we work with a lot of brands, and your name is very unique and catchy. Like this could be huge, and it can go into a lot of stuff. And so, yes, we're going to be doing grips, but we're also like my wife and I were talking about this actually like during Christmas time. We were driving to her parents' house for Christmas party. Is it's going to be UDrippin, but it's going to be like sports equipment too. So eventually we'll get into like golf gloves, baseball gloves, like batting gloves. We'll get into other types of equipment that other sports could use over time. Hopefully hire people in those areas that have that expertise um, to help us launch it. And so I'll never do tennis rackets or paddles. I don't want to get involved with that. I'd rather do like the smaller item products that just can help you perform better. Not shoes, like just stuff that like it's just small amount of equipment from gloves to grips to other random sporting equipment. Um, like Wilson does, right? They do basketballs, things like that. Like maybe we would get into basketballs. I don't know. But that's the vision is how can we be more of like just a grip business and move into like equipment in the future. And I think our branding, our image, we're not UDrippin grips. We're UDrippin, right? Like on our website, it's UDrippin. That's for a reason because we didn't want to pigeonhole ourselves. We wanted to branch out into potentially something else down the line for other products. Like if I wanted to own, Utah is very known for soda shops because a lot of Utahs don't drink coffee, right? Or alcohol. So there's a lot of soda shops with flavors in there. So I can call it like Drippin Soda or UDrippin something or like Drippin Sips is like an idea I have right now for the future. So it's like I can kind of hopefully try to tie it into the same umbrella. So that the vision is like, okay, how can I broaden it to other stuff in the future, not pigeonhole myself into being just a grip. So
You're not
that's
going to
like
solve this pickleball problem, are you, with these variants and different types of pickleballs and how they play?
Oh, not that. I have friends that are nerdy about stuff like that. But yeah, for me, it's no, I'm sticking with like, clothing, uh, arm sleeves, slides, like sandals that people can wear off the court, right? Just things that are practical, affordable, but yet they match our image, right? And so really from that, it's doing that over time. But like this year is we had that partnership with Pickler, so they're opening up dozens more this year. So trying to get involved with them a little more. We're on Pickleball Central now because I worked a deal with Pickler to be on Pickleball Central's website. So now we're on there, and we got an email saying that we were rated #1 grip for Pickleball Central last year, even though we were on there for a few months. And so,
Hell yeah.
yeah, so that and this year is, hey, like I've learned that partnerships is the most important thing. I would not be where I'm at today without Zubin, the owner of LA Mat Drops, my pro Thomas Wilson, Elise Jones, Megan Dazan. I've known them from Utah. Um, they are the ones that really helped me early on get my brand out there, and my wife especially. Like she's done way more in the background, and she needs to show her face more on the business, but she's the biggest reason. But this year is like, okay, how do we continue to grow these partnerships? Go about it that way because that's what leads to long-term relationships. That's what opens up other doors. It could lead to helping us get into Europe, other countries. It can help us get into other online stores. um, we just got connected with First Serve Tennis in San Antonio. They're one of the largest and most busiest like storefronts for tennis, and I had an ambassador go in there and show them one of my grips without I didn't know about it. They emailed me. I talked with the owner, and the owner is like, "These are incredible. I don't know how you made these, blah blah." And they just bought a big order and got a text today saying, "Hey, they're flying off the shelves. No joke. Like we got to get another order going. I want to help you get this brand into tennis. Like let's get you into tennis side too. Like there's a lot you can do in the tennis world." And so that's in their partnership, right? And that's like my big focus is how can I build relationships with other people, regardless if they do anything with me. I just want to build connections, and hopefully one day I can return the favor for someone else, or they can help me. So just continue to grow our brand in ways of bringing the content to those that people are liking, and then just me just still doing my due diligence of cold calling, you could say, and trying to build relationships. So yeah.
We may have to talk off air. My engineering brain was just turning with all the things we
Okay.
could possibly produce.
Oh yeah. I got a funny one, but I can't share it on the podcast.
Yeah, we'll talk about it afterwards. Uh, I got to get my mind out of the gutter.
Oh,
Uh, okay. Anyways, we have two
yeah.
closing questions.
Okay, let's do it.
We'll start with the first one. What's one failure you're grateful for today?
Oh, um, what's one failure? It would have to be, uh, it would have to be that other business. Like that's ultimately what kind of like fueled a bigger fire under me.
Second question and our
Yeah.
last question.
Okay.
What is your greatest fear moving forward?
Greatest fear, huh? Okay. My greatest fear is not being able to provide for my kids with the life that I had. So I grew up, my dad traveled a lot and didn't come to a lot of my tennis stuff as a kid when I played in high school, but he always gave me the resources to go travel. And that's one of my biggest fears is I want my kids to have what I had, if not more. Because like, no matter what, like your kids are going to go different paths in life. But my biggest fear is letting them down and not letting them have the experiences that I had. And so like that to me, that's like a big fear of mine is I want my kids to be able to go play competitive soccer or basketball or whatever they want or whatever it may be. I want them to be able to do it. And I don't want to have that feeling of like, I can't support that. I don't ever want to have that. And that's part of the reason why when I started this business is it's not so much for me because of my hobby. It's because I want to set up my kids for a future and my wife and I to where, hey, average person retires at 65. I want to retire at 45. You know, I'm 35 in a couple months. I would love to be 45 in 10 years, be done. Like doing other side gigs. You're never stopped as an entrepreneur, right? You're always doing something, but like don't have to worry about working a full-time job or you have the finances you could retire. That's like my thing. But ultimately it's my family, it's my kids. It sounds sappy and original, but that's like the biggest fear is not being able to provide with what they want. Because I don't want to let them down. So
I'm gonna give you a bonus question here that popped in my
okay,
brain.
let's do it.
And the reason that I just want to close it out like this is because you've given a lot of really pieces of gold for any entrepreneur or founder or future CEO that's listening, whether it is communication, whether it is brand building, or whether it is how do you market your product and really stumble into collaborations. So if you had to give one piece of advice for that person that is listening right now, that is questioning, taking that leap into entrepreneurship or into anything, what would that one piece of advice be?
What does Nike say?
Or do you want me to answer that one?
Yeah. What does Nike say?
Just do it.
Just do it. No, I'm dead serious. Like when I told my wife I was doing it, I was scared. I was like, she's going to be mad. She somehow, I think she maybe felt that it was right, but just do it. Like, don't let other people tell you can't do it. If other people are saying that, you're around the wrong people. Still to this day, I know people in my local community that probably say stuff on my back, but I don't care because I'm proving them wrong, right? I'm growing something that no one thought I could probably do. They thought like, oh, he's going to try. But now we have 800 ambassadors and we're growing. And we have a lot of partnerships and a big one that hopefully I can announce here in the next month or so. That's like, just do it. Whether it doesn't take a lot to start a business. It takes time, energy, obviously, right? Research, but you could start a business for $500. You could do it for $5,000 to whatever you feel comfortable with to spend, do it. Don't wait because things change so fast. And my wife and I agreed, we talked about it during the holidays. We had an experience where we made a custom design grip, right? A cool logo design on it, like elephant print. We were out of stock. People were building hype on it. We got it in. I posted at 8 p.m. In 30 minutes, by the time I drove to play pickleball, we sold $3,000 in grips in 30 minutes because of building that hype. And I knew then this is it. This is going to be huge one day. And like and my wife and I talked about that after, and we were like, we have to put the foot on the gas and go. Like we can't let other people try to get ahead of us. Like there's already a competitor out there called Lizard Skin that does baseball grips. They partner with MLB. they partner with NHL, but I'm like, you know what? They are worth 50 million. We could, if we're a quarter of that, we're doing well. And so like, we got to push our foot down and go. So don't push down the gas slowly, floor it and learn from the mistakes. Like expect to fail. If you're going in there expecting it to be this big glamorous thing, you're going to be for a rude awakening. And going into this business, I knew that, hey, it can be, but I have to be willing to accept that it may not, and that there's going to be big, massive bumps in the road. And I think that's what really helped us be successful, because I knew going into this one that I have confidence, I know the market, but also confident that if I fail, I know how to pivot from my last experience. So hopefully whoever's listening can learn from me on that. If that's one thing, I hope it's that.
Well, Jon, thank you so much for coming on the
Yeah, man.
podcast today.
Thank you.
There was a lot of great insights in there. Like I said, we talked about communication styles. We talked about how to go about marketing collaborations. We talked about, elements of branding and even building a business from scratch. So thank you for walking through that with us. There was so much gold in that conversation. So thank you for coming on today.
No, I appreciate it, man. I'm excited to watch your journey. The last month's been crazy with my full-time job and sales kickoff and the holidays. So I've been trying to watch some of your videos and like get prepared a little bit. And from when you started to where you're at now, it's cool to see the difference, what you're doing. And so I think what you're doing is amazing. It's inspired me to look at starting a podcast. I've written the name down. I've written the name down as if I can, you can. And so eventually you may see that out there one day, but it inspired me when I talked to you several months ago. Yeah. And I'm like, I should share my journey more and hopefully help other people. And so I came up with the name as if I can, you can, because it's true. So you're the man, dude. You're going to kill. I'm excited to see who other people you work with, bigger and better, And so I appreciate your time, man.